Hey everyone, welcome back to 996 The Howl. Finally, we have enough news to make a video, especially the first one with Ryan Jankowski leaving. I've been sitting on that news story for a while. Just didn't make sense to make like a 2 to 3 minute video on just him leaving, even though it's a very important news story that sort of went under the radar. So let's just jump right into it. Ryan Jankowski was hired by the Seattle Kraken to be their new assistant general manager. Ryan Jankowski was hired by Bill Armstrong about pretty much 5 years ago when Bill Armstrong was hired to be the GM of the Arizona Coyotes, and then Bill Armstrong did the Herculean task of revamping and basically creating a whole scouting and development department, which included Ryan. Ryan was the associate director of amateur scouting. He was just under the director of amateur scouting, Daryl Plandowski. Ryan and Daryl, they're basically the two-headed monster of the drafting. Ryan and Daryl were very media front facing, in those weeks before the draft, leading up to the draft, and even post draft. It was usually Daryl and Ryan talking to the media about the draft. Bill had so many great words to say about Ryan in the past 5 years. He always mentioned him and Daryl. Ryan and Daryl were very important in basically building the prospect pipeline and filling those prospect cupboards and overflowing that pipeline and those cupboards with prospects. Without Ryan and Daryl, we wouldn't be where we are. They had such a huge impact on the organization, building through the draft. That's what Bill Armstrong wanted. That was his goal, his vision of creating a cup contender. And now here we are in Utah. And we're at a point now where, his scouting staff are taking promotions to other competitive teams. I mean, to be honest, the worst part about this is the Seattle Kraken were kind of like middling around. They don't really have a vision or a concise goal, but they get a great hockey mind in Ryan to be their assistant general manager. So hopefully this doesn't have a huge impact to the drafting of Utah. I know we still have Daryl, the director of amateur scouting. I'm sure it's a trickle-down effect from Bill Armstrong. I mean, even above to Ryan Smith, just through Ryan Smith, Bill Armstrong, and Daryl, the next man up, probably an internal promotion that, this organization, they have a vision for scouting. They've executed it for 5 years. And so hopefully as fans, we don't really notice him leaving. But it's a very important topic, even though not a lot of people would talk about it. Next, we have Caleb Desnoyers getting wrist surgery. He had both his wrists injured through the end of the season, through the Quebec playoffs, where he helped his team win the Quebec championships. And even in the Memorial Cup tournament, he had those broken wrists. He was very transparent about it. Even at the prospect combine, he told everyone who was looking to draft him about his injuries. Bill Armstrong and the scouting staff thought the injuries wouldn't have such a hard impact on Desnoyers' future trajectory. In fact, he played amazing at the end of the season through the playoffs with those injuries. So obviously they thought it didn't have a huge impact on his game. And after or during development camp, it was sort of it was said that Desnoyers wouldn't need surgery and he would just recover on both wrists. But it seems like now only one wrist needs surgery and he will be missing 3 months, 12 weeks. So that means he's going to miss training camp for the Utah Mammoth. I know we all know he had his goal and his eyes set on making the team out of camp, which would be unbelievable. And a lot of people, myself included, would just discount that as a, pie in the sky pipe dream. But he's very goal oriented. He wants to win. He's a winner. He's such a competitor, Desnoyers is. So, I mean, the best case scenario for this is he doesn't get down on himself and he just rehabilitates to 100%. He could lean on a former first-round draft pick, Iginla, from last year, who had double hip surgery and had to rehab to 100%. He missed around 6 months, so I'm sure Iginla is on Desnoyers' speed dial. And even Captain Clayton Keller, he suffered a massive leg injury about 3 years ago. and he had to rehab throughout the whole off season, and he came back even better and reached career highs in the seasons he came back from that broken leg injury. So he's got a lot of support, and I'm sure the Utah staff are going to be with Desnoyers the whole time to make sure he gets up to 100% healthy. Next, Keller and Cooley were invited to the Team USA Olympic orientation camp. Only 44 players were invited, and Keller and Cooley made the list, made the roster. I mean, this is unbelievable stuff, and it goes to show that World Championship showing of Keller and Cooley on the top line with Tage Thompson. They helped Team USA grab the cup and win the championship a few months ago in Europe, and that got them on the radar of Team USA, the Olympic staff, and now they're invited to the orientation camp. It is just an administration and team building camp. There's no on-ice activities, but just the fact that, you know, Cooley is on the radar for Team USA is just, that's unbelievable. That's great stuff. And if Cooley gets out to an unbelievable start of the season, you know, eclipsing all his career stats in the first, 30 games before the Olympics in February, there's this outside chance he might make the roster. Maybe if some injuries happen to Team USA, if Cooley has a hot start, he could be a name that joins the ranks for Team USA in the Olympics. And on that note, there's some interesting, funny tweets made by Nick Schmaltz's brother, Jordan Schmaltz. If you don't follow him on Twitter, he's a laugh to follow on Twitter if you don't take him seriously. But this is what he had to say about the Team USA orientation camp roster for the Olympics. He says, non-biased opinion, which is ironic because he's Nick Schmaltz's brother. Nick Schmaltz is a better ice hockey player than at least 3 of the forwards on the list, no questions asked. And then he doubles down immediately. The funny thing about how USA Hockey works is if you're considered a bubble guy for the Olympic team or 4 nations, you got to agree to go play the World Championships in a Danish village or some second world city in Czechia after playing 82 games plus preseason. Otherwise, the suits, don't think you want it. Maybe I just don't want to play in a tournament that doesn't really mean anything for the next 6 weeks and risk injury, God forbid. Nut chugging at its finest. The best players should be selected even for an orientation camp, and it shouldn't be held against you if you're an 8 to 10 plus year national leaguer and say no to the World Championships. This might offend some people. Sorry for keeping it real. I mean, that's funny stuff by Nick Schmaltz's brother. Basically, he's saying, you know, it's a performance act that, you know, players have to go to the World Championships in order to get considered for 4 nations or the Olympics. And some players, you know, it's a grueling NHL season from September to April. If you make the playoffs and go deep, it goes to May and June. You don't want to go to, some might think, a useless, meaningless tournament just to show face for the suits on the Olympics team. So that's his opinion. Whether I agree with it or not, doesn't really matter. I think they're going to choose the best players for the Olympics. I don't think they're picking and choosing, you know, this guy didn't go to the World Championships in 2024. Let's not choose him. And finally, Connor Ingram was released after 5 months from the Player Assistance Program. I am a huge Ingram fan. I feel alone in it sometimes because, I mean, he had a crazy season with Arizona in Arizona's last season, and then it just went really off the rails with the first season in Utah. He had the passing of his mother. He checked into the Player Assistance Program. He couldn't offer that stability and consistency to the team, so he took himself out right after the 4 Nations break, and Vejmelka took charge, took the lead, took the starting net, and ran with it. I think Vejmelka started like over 20 games in a row, and Vejmelka did everything he could, and he became the starter, and Vejmelka is now the starter. But for me, I love that Ingram is back into the fold. He's going to have a great training camp. I just want him to provide that consistency and stability for the Utah Mammoth. I don't need him to be a world beater. I don't need him to take back the starting job from Veggie. I just want him to be a great backup. I know he could be a great backup. It was a really down year from him, and it wasn't up to his standards immediately to start that season, and I knew that. And I kept banging the drum like, hey, this isn't really Ingram. I'm not sure what's happening here, but I just really hope Ingram is 100%. And just that's a great tandem if both goalies are at 100%. And they, you know, they spent $1.5 million for insurance in Vitek Vanacek. That's a pretty hefty insurance policy for the Utah Mammoth. We'll see how they handle these 3 goalies. Maybe for sure they'll bring them to training camp. And I think maybe after training camp, they might make a decision on who to move on from. Maybe they could trade a goalie to a team desperate for goaltending. Maybe a goalie gets injured during preseason or training camp for another team and they need a goalie. Maybe someone gets put through waivers, which they will probably get claimed. I don't think Vanacek or Ingram would make it past waivers to the Roadrunners. So it's just all positive, good stuff. I'm happy for Ingram and really hoping he gets back and returns to form. The Connor Ingram I know well. So that's it for me. Thank you for watching. If you like what you see, spread the word. And as always, thank you for your support.